The problem with propaganda is that it works. And it works on all of us. Because if something is repeated enough times, even if you did not believe it initially, if one is not careful, ultimately you will start believing it. And there is a lot of propaganda unfolding in our politics currently. And in my opinion, the very steep rise in fake news and propaganda in our country is a very clear sign of panic and desperation. In my opinion also, that is also a confirmation that we have entered the season of chaos. For those who have been following me very closely in recent days, you must have found it super fascinating. Hours, very shortly, moments after I released my current special report, where I said that President Uhuru Kenyatta has gone quiet for a long time. Moments after that, Uhuru emerged with the now famous Wasaliti remarks. Traitors, people who betray. Yeah. Now, those remarks by the former president at a function of the Catholic Church further opened the floodgates, which were already open, but were widened much further, of propaganda and misinformation. And you know, those who are behind this, never fool yourself, are very intelligent people, and they know what they're doing. Yeah, despite what most of us may think. Because what had happened a few days previously, combined with the misinformation of what Uhuru meant, should have been enough to greatly dent the reputation, popularity of the former President of the Republic of Kenya. But is that what has happened? No! That should also tell you a lot. In my opinion, it tells us that things in Kenya today, things in our country, in our dear motherland today, have reached a point of no return. Just like in the past, during the reign of Moi and Kanu, things in Kenya reached a point of no return. Kanu was distributing money left, right, and center. A lot of this money was being distributed in the Mount Kenya region. And under other circumstances, it should have changed the tide, or at least halted it. It did not, because the country had reached a point of no return. That is precisely where we are today. You see, a few days before this Uhuru Church remarks, a shocking narrative, complete with a campaign poster, emerged, telling Kenyans to prepare for a Uhuru Kenyatta bid with Kalonzo Musyoka as the running mate. I am sure I don't need to remind you that one of the narratives that got Uhuru very unpopular in the Mount Kenya region in the run-up to the 2022 presidential elections, where he was supporting Raila, was the UDA propaganda that Uhuru was going to extend his presidency with Raila Odinga as a puppet president. Now that is so ridiculous. But it worked. And so here was this narrative telling us that the Kenyattas are going to extend their presidency. That is what that narrative was saying. And then this is closely followed by Uhuru remarks that the peddlers of lies have told us were aimed directly at Raila Odinga and his bid for the AU. Big job. We were told that although Uhuru said very clearly he was talking about leadership, and the leadership of lording it over others, instead of servant leadership, and of that leadership betraying the people. Despite that, and these points were very clear in the speech, you didn't even need to think very hard to grasp them. Despite that, somebody was telling us, insisting, that Uhuru was hitting out at Raila for betraying him. And voila! A few hours ago, Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah in Nyeri repeated the same and hit out at those remarks by Uhuru, emphasizing that Uhuru was upset about Raila's bid for the AU position, that Uhuru was frustrating progress on the NADCO report, that Uhuru Kenyatta convinced Eugene Wamalwa not to sign the NADCO agreement, despite the fact that Eugene Wamalwa was there right from day one as the negotiations were going on, and he agreed to everything. He did not raise any objection until the signing came, and he was convinced, without using his own brain, by Uhuru not to sign it. That is what Ichung'wah told the nation. I trust that you can clearly see where this propaganda is going. It is really just an extension of what we were treated to in the run-up to the 2022 presidential elections. And therefore it is very obvious, indeed more than obvious, where this narrative is coming from. It is coming from exactly the same place it was coming from in the run-up to 2022 elections. That should be obvious. You know, in analyzing politics, this is where depth comes in. At least having some background. Because just reading from history books and interviewing people, you may not get a very clear picture. And it is very easy to go wrong. Now, as far as the Kenyatta family goes, Uhuru Kenyatta, the younger brother of Uhuru, has always been the more organized son. Very organized. He has always been the more responsible son. And it is not an accident that he trusted with running the Kenyatta family empire from very early on. Trusted by the mother, Mama Ngina Kenyatta, who does not trust people too easily, even her own children. And Uhuru, the firstborn son, has just been Uhuru. And I can tell you Uhuru stories that will make your ears ring. But those are stories for another day. But the point here is that despite all the drama surrounding the life of Uhuru Kenyatta, Mama Ngina Kenyatta never slowed, never abandoned her mission to prepare her son for his destiny. A destiny she was very sure about, because it was proclaimed in a prophecy in the 1890s, not the 1990s, the 1890s, when Jomo Kenyatta, then a young orphan child, barely 8 years old, first heard leadership spoken over his life. A super fascinating tale, and there are videos right here on this channel that you can look for that will give you more information. Anyway, on the surface of things and without enough information, it is very easy to start arguing aggressively for a Uhuru Kenyatta presidency. and not because you want Uhuru Kenyatta's brother to be president in 2027. No! Your whole objective would be to dent the popularity, which is still on the rise, of the fourth president of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. But before we go any further, we need to be clear. What did Uhuru mean when he made this traitor speech of his? A section of the media, very experienced, and gets it right most of the time in analyzing and interpreting speeches of politicians, told us and announced in screaming headlines that actually Uhuru was hitting out at the Kenya Kwanza leadership and the way it had betrayed the people. And this seems to be confirmed by the former president's remarks about servant leadership as opposed to people lording it over others. Simple question you need to ask yourself. Raila has lorded it over who? Yeah? Ruling who? In office as who? Okay? And following this train of thought, it makes perfect sense for Uhuru's remarks to really irritate Kenya Kwanza, so that Kimani Ichung'wah, majority leader, felt it necessary to comment about what Uhuru said and to peddle his narrative, basically confirming, affirming what the propaganda peddlers were already saying, that Uhuru is upset at Raila. And if you want to know just how upset Kenya Kwanza are at Uhuru's latest remarks, consider that only very recently UDA's Rigathi Gachagua and others have made very determined efforts to ask the Kenyatta family to forgive them. They have apologized to Mama Ngina Kenyatta. Clearly, the strategy has been to try and regain some popularity in the Mount Kenya region. And a shortcut to doing that is making peace with the Kenyatta family. Because currently, that old strategy of gaining popularity by firing barbs at the Kenyattas no longer works. In fact, it will do the absolute opposite if you try it. And the response of the Kenyattas to these peace initiatives, if you can call them that, has been very instructive. They have been cold, unresponsive, quiet. And for students of politics, that clearly tells you who the rookies in this game are. It clearly tells you those who are still learning politics and those who have already learned politics. That is precisely what is happening here. And so, for Ichung'wah to abandon what they had already spent time and resources doing, to abandon an initiative that was already ongoing, and to come out and hit out at Uhuru Kenyatta once again, that tells you how irritated some people were, how incensed, how provoked some people were. And that should leave you with no doubt about who Uhuru Kenyatta was targeting in his controversial remarks. Something else, UDA chose to respond to Uhuru remarks. Where? In the Rift Valley? No. In Nairobi? No. This response came from the heart of Mount Kenya, in Nyeri. That is where Ichung'wah made those remarks. That should clearly tell you this is Mount Kenya politics. Indeed, even in his remarks, Uhuru Kenyatta spoke a few times in the Gikuyu language. Target audience for a politician is always critical. And anybody seeking to analyze a situation should also take careful note, in my opinion. This is getting very interesting. While Kenya Kwanza does not seem to have a consistent strategy, Uhuru Kenyatta has a very consistent strategy. He is focusing on the Mount Kenya region. That's where his focus is, clearly. And he is focusing on consistently building up his popularity and influence and clout in the region. Because that is the only thing that will save the Jubilee Party. Uhuru is consistent. In sharp contrast to the Gachagwas and company, who today they are hitting out at the Kenyatta family, tomorrow they are apologizing to Mama Ngina Kenyatta, then the other day they are hitting out at Uhuru. Yeah, no consistency at all. Which may raise the question, do they know what they are doing? Are they sure? What is happening in Kenya is very clear to those who are experienced in analyzing and grasping politics. And that is why it is super fascinating how people are positioning themselves for what is coming. Yeah, Uhuru Kenyatta is positioning himself by being very consistent in his strategy and what he's doing. He has never changed. But other ambitious politicians in Kenya are also positioning themselves. And some are more radical than others. Throughout history, good politicians have been good opportunists. Yeah. And some of the things these people are doing chini ya maji are more than fascinating. And this is the subject of my latest highly sensitive special report. Yeah. Deadly things that the 6 men and 1 woman are doing that will decide the fate of Kenya. Now you can see details on your screens right now. Also, because of its sensitivity, the numbers I'm looking for are limited and I'm almost there. So please take action right away to avoid disappointment. For only Kenya shillings 3,999 or $31, you'll be able to get this very detailed, highly shocking special report in your inbox in seconds. And you'll also be able to fully understand why some people are so nervous, so jittery. Yeah. So much so that Uhuru goes to a church and makes a remark and people get very hot behind the collar. Especially those who have not spoken as yet. When you get my report, you will totally understand. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.